news flash that said Jalen, was it Jalen or somebody, a free agent? Who's a free agent that just re-up with the Knicks?
Oh yes. Oh
Oh,
my gosh. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I forget. You know what? I don't want to.
yes.
I don't. Yes.
Knicks in
Yes.
five, baby. And that's the opening of our show. Knicks in
You
five.
know. You know.
We're
Jalen.
celebrating.
Jalen lives in Westchester. He's from Scarsdale. Okay. He's from
Okay. I'll tell you that. And that those were incredible games. And game number four had us jumping out
Woo.
of our seats.
OG. I did OG Ananobi. There you go. That tip
Oh
in.
my goodness. Oh my
He
goodness.
cracks me
Well,
up though because when he was interviewed, he asked. They were like, "So, he's like, yeah, I was calm by." He's like, "I kind of wanted to dump it, but I said I should just tip it." Like,
yeah, you made the right move, baby.
that's right. That's
He
right.
made the right move. For our audience members who are joining in, we already started our conversation.
Yes, we are.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I am Anne Marie, host of About This Life podcast. About This Life podcast is about shifting the mindsets that bind us, that limits us in terms of who we are and what we do. And as we go through this process of living and becoming, we find that we have some patterns we need to let go of, some mindsets that we need to change. So it's transformative thinking on the show, really. And I should say, listen, because that's what I'm used to saying. With me today is my guest, Savio P. Clemente. Hello and welcome.
And Marie, I love the energy. Let's see what we can unravel today
let,
with our guest.
let it cook. Let it cook. So, Savio, I just want to give our listeners just a little taste of your background. And you are a keynote a speaker, and your space that you occupy is healthcare organizations. I have another space for you, and that's teachers, but that's another story and a different day. And you work in the area in terms of here's how I'm going to phrase it: decision making fatigue and clarity. Now, I could say about the TEDx talk, the best-selling book, the journalist who's interviewed over like 2,000 leaders and experts. I'm going to say more, but I want to start with that idea of leadership first, because in leadership, you work with organizations large scale. And what other ways are we leaders from the personal to the macro?
Yeah. It's often a disconnect. Often I find that leaders think that they have to fill a specific role to get a specific output. And often people think that leadership is like the big corporations. No, what is leadership? Leadership is how people see you, how people feel you, how people want to follow you, how they want to mirror what you're doing. That's true leadership. And so the space that I'm in, which is with healthcare leaders, especially, is that they often find they have to be put on a role. They have to know the answers. They have to figure it out. It's high stakes themselves, the organization, the team, and another human being. So often the cognitive overload, the decision fatigue, the pressure, it's so paramount and tantamount to their own decision making that they get lost. Burnout, typical word that everyone uses. They often find that the decision quality itself gets questioned. And then they often, to a large degree, don't feel like they're truly whole. They feel like they're being fragmented and they're not actually unified in how they express, how they lead, how they teach, how they do.
And I want to break down that word fragmented in a minute. But before we do that, I offer you an expansion of that because we look at the healthcare industry. I'm not kidding when I say educators, because it's the pressure cooker. And I suppose any industry. And then there's this show, and what you bring also speaks on the micro level in terms of individuals, because we get stuck in decision making and which is where you come in terms of offering us a path for clarity. So we're going to dig into this conversation and talk about how do people get fragmented? What exactly does that mean?
Yeah. So my central thesis in all the work that I do is performance doesn't fail first, clarity does. And the reason why is because at the end of the day, the fragmentation happens because we feel like we have to actually voice those specific roles for the specific task at hand rather than coming as completely unified. Now, how do you come completely as unified? We're complex human beings. We have so many things happening and running through us. There's just disruption socially, politically, technologically with AI that we ourselves don't feel like things are being reflected in the way that we want to. And the fragmentation then continues to rise because we're then saying, well, is this really filling my cup? Is this really lighting me up? Or am I just going through the motions for a paycheck to feed my family and to keep everyone whole and safe? And so it's a really, really hard because you have to actually search for the answers. And the answers don't come externally, the answers come internally. I say this with great care, but we don't have a content problem anymore in this, our living world. We have a connection problem. And the connection
Mm,
problem is with ourselves. That's why we cannot connect to another person. Because when you are unified or more unified or find the clarity within, and we're not talking about perfection, I want to be clear. There's no such thing as that perfected, unified space. I'm talking about less consternation, less decision fatigue, less unknowing, the more we're able to then connect with other people. Because we live in a world right
okay.
now.
I'm going to interrupt you because you're giving me a lot of information. And I need to be able to process it and see the nuances because you are out here impacting people's lives when you speak and when you give TEDx talks on this. So I'm interrupting you to jump in at the point you talked about whew, the connection or the loss of connection that we feel because we're not showing up whole. So when we're trying to solve a problem in the workplace as quote unquote a leader, what you're suggesting is we're not bringing our whole selves, we're not bringing the passion we used to have when we came in. We're now in different pieces because we're working with deadlines. We're working with what the boss wants, what the customer wants. Am I reading this correctly?
100%. And also, what's the system want? What does the bigger system, what does the competition want? What does your boss want? It's a whole panoply of things. And you're right to stop me because this is not easy things to wrestle with. This is not easy
Mm-hmm.
things to figure out. I myself, on the top of the show, you mentioned a whole bunch of wonderful, great credentials and titles, but they mean nothing if I am not expressing my whole self in the things that I do, in the things that I'm working towards. And we're not looking for idealism as well. I mentioned perfection, but I think when you're tested, and for me, the test came through having two cancer diagnoses. I had one in
Wow.
2014.
Share about that.
Sure. In 2014, I'll take you back. I came back
Mm-hmm.
from a trip from Amsterdam, Paris, and London with a friend. I was noticing deep, drenching night sweats. I'm like, that's weird. I'm in Europe. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not in some tropical island. Came back, so saw my doctor. Ended up getting a sonogram. Was told to go to the hospital after the sonogram. Got admitted to the fifth floor. Later that night, I heard nurses talking about transferring me to the seventh floor, which they call the cancer floor. It ended up being stage 3 non Hodgkin's B cell lymphoma, which is a blood cancer.
Mm.
I ended up being bedridden for a week because they had to put a nephrostomy tube because I had ascites inside the ascites of my stomach while my stomach was getting distended was the lymphoma. And then 2 days before I left the hospital, I was there for about 15 days. The medical director came and said I needed to start something called R-CHOP chemotherapy. I did that in the
Mm.
hospital. And then I left the hospital, did 5 more rounds every 3 weeks.
Wow.
Then, after about 6 rounds of chemotherapy, I received my remission status, and I was in remission for a decade until June of 2024 when I had a relapse in a different area of my body, same cancer. And that was very involved and comprehensive. So I don't,
Same cancer, different part of your body, and which is in the blood in terms of transferring. And what are some of the health decisions that you had to make? It had to be a gazillion health decisions coming at you. Talk about overwhelm.
so 10 years later, my body is 10 years older. My thought process or my emotional process was hopefully doesn't this doesn't come back, but it did. And thankfully, I live in a country where I have access to healthcare because that's
Mhm.
another part of it. I have access to healthcare that is covering this as well, which is amazing. But I came back from yet another trip. This time I was on assignment, so I'm a journalist, and I covered a 8 city tour of India. I wrote about this idea of separateness. Am I really separate from what I see? Because
Mhm.
India, there's highs and there's lows. There's great opulence and there's great poverty. And I wrote about that. And I spent an additional 2 weeks visiting my relatives as well, different part of India. And I came back and I was noticing before I even left some ear fullness and nasal congestion. I was seeing my oncologist. This time it was a new oncologist, the other one retired. And it was my routine yearly visit. And he looked at my blood work, everything's fine. He's like, I'll see you in a year. And I'm like, Dr. Steinberg, I'm experiencing ear fullness and nasal congestion. I'm going to see an ENT. He's like, yeah, that's great. He's like, tell them to send over the files. We'll put in your record. See you next year. I'm like, okay. I ended up going to my ENT in New York City. I live in the suburbs of New York. My ENT's like, wait a minute, there's a lot of inflammation in your nasal cavity. Savio, you're a B cell lymphoma survivor, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm like 10 years in remission. He's like, do you know B cells can live in the nasal cavity? I'm like, what? I mean,
What?
to be honest with you, Anne Marie, I just thought I was getting nasal medication that day. He's like, and then he said something so to this day will haunt me. He goes, I have been burned as a doctor before. So let's be on the safe side. Let's do an MRI. Did an MRI. He's like, it looks weird, my friend. He's like, let's do a biopsy. I did a biopsy, and Friday, 3 p.m., I receive a MyChart notification that it was, in fact, a relapse of the same cancer. And the next day, Saturday, was supposed to be my 25th college reunion.
Mm,
Girls I was emailing weeks before that I didn't see in 25 years, and I didn't have the strength, the stamina, or even the desire to fake that everything was okay because it wasn't okay. And I
my
went to
goodness.
see my oncologist that Monday, the next, the Monday after the weekend. And he spent an hour and a half explaining to me the comprehensive medical protocol when it comes to a relapse or refractory of lymphoma, which included 3-day hospital
Be
stays.
yeah, before you share that, and forgive me for keep interrupting you, because there's some salient points you're making, and I don't want listeners to miss this. Because I wonder with the 10-year differential, did you think about that it would come back during any of those periods? Did that ever weigh on your mind during those 10 years?
So, a few things. One, I knew that it was a possibility because if you ask any doctor, they will tell you we have no idea how lymphoma is a blood cancer. It's not an organ cancer. With some organ cancers, there's lifestyle, there's genetics, there's different things that could happen. With blood cancers, it might be genetic, it might not be. I asked my parents, maternally and paternally, there was nobody who had anything like this. So I thought to myself, yes, it could come back, but I do know this enemy. So I said, if it ever did, I know what I did the first time. So I knew how to handle it emotionally and psychologically and also mentally. That didn't really trouble me. And the first time when I had it, I wasn't really thinking about dying. I was actually thinking that I didn't live, that I didn't fulfill what I came here to do. None of us know what that is, but
Right, right, right.
I felt like I didn't, I disappointed myself and other people by not accomplishing or finishing that. And when I'm talking about accomplishing, I don't mean a big bank account. Like I couldn't care
Yeah.
less. I mean
Doing all the
actually
things.
I'm actually giving of people, learning from people, learning and growing. That's what I was more concerned about. In terms of my lifestyle, I was before, honestly, in 2014, physically, I was doing all the right stuff, Anne Marie.
Yeah.
I was working out, eating the right foods, exercising, meditating, keeping stress down. I was always doing what they say you should do. So, did I ever think that it would come back? Thought to myself, it's a possibility. Did I ever think that it would be found in my nasal cavity? No, no, no,
Because
no.
that is certainly a center of anxiety, which connects to what you do today. And then it came back the second time. And I heard you say it was like a comprehensive care system you had to go through. So there are hundreds and hundreds of decisions that have to be made. And so walk us through, because you do have a framework for tackling decision making. So walk us through what one needs to consider. We started out this conversation talking about leadership. And one goes to the mindset of a business, but this is leadership in terms of over oneself. Walk us through what it means to learn to navigate decisions in uncertainty, which is your area of expertise.
Yeah. Life showed me that uncertainty, didn't it? It showed it to me in spades.
Yes,
It showed it to
yes.
me in spades, and it was testing me to see. But just to wrap up that initial thing that I was saying, it involved 2, 3 night stays in the hospital, 29 days I spent in the hospital in a quarantine room getting my own stem cells um, back into my body. Um, Going through side effects. One night I had to be rushed to ICU because I had tachycardia and had to get norepinephrine. Leaving the hospital, doing about 4.5 months of an optional immunotherapy, even though I got a complete response to treatment, technically a complete remission. I chose to do that, and then I did 5 months of physical therapy. We're talking about major decisions that affects not only my personal life, affects not only
Mhm.
other people that I know, but it also affects my work. I chose not to work. I chose to just focus on healing. And so the framework that I have is called the Adaptive Resilience Framework. And that
Mhm.
really posits that our environment, our situations, the work that we do, there's signals and patterns that get be sent to us. We're the ones that don't realize exactly what's happening.
Yep,
How does
that
that
part.
disrupt? How does that disruption actually manifest? And my biggest central point is what I speak with is not about surviving the crisis. It's about what happens afterwards. Because Anne Marie, I can talk to you all day about the wound, girl, but
Mhm.
I want to talk about the walk. I want to talk about what happens after. How do I recalibrate? How do I reorientate? How do I figure out how to move forward? And it's a simple lens of the framework that I use. It's called the
Mhm.
ALOHA reboot. I said it on the stage of TEDx. I did a TEDx about a year and a half before the relapse in 2024. And my TEDx was called 7 Minutes to Wellness, How to Love Your Inner Stranger. And people are
Mhm.
like, inner stranger?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that in your highlight reel, and I'm just like, okay, we already starting deep because you're talking about being stranger to ourselves.
I start off the TEDx talk by saying, if you saw yourself in the mirror, would you recognize that person? That's how I
Yeah.
started off my talk. And it made people pause and it made them think. So someone asked me, they challenged me. They're like, so what's your inner stranger? Because that's weird. I'm like, my inner stranger is that young person, to be truthful, that young adult who never felt completely connected. I was friends with a lot of people. No, I wasn't an outcast. I wasn't bullied. I just wasn't really completely connected. They're like, oh, okay. So my inner stranger is that executive, that ideal executive that I want to be, or that great mother that I want to be, or that great sibling that I just can't seem to be. And so it's a lens that I use called the Aloha Reboot. As we all know, aloha in Hawaiian means hello.
Hello.
So it's a hello to your inner self. So it's very simple. It's an acronym. A stands for acknowledge. So for me, I was in the hospital. quarantine room. Every 4 hours, nurses came, did vitals. Doctors came, did their rounds. This is my life. I'm in the toilet every 2 hours. This is my life. This is acknowledge what it is, whether that's word vomiting or typing it out or writing it out or doing voice notes. Just acknowledge what's happening. L stands for listening. So listen to your inner self. Now in Hawaiian, because of my 2 cancer journeys, I've studied everything with healing, Anne Marie. There's nothing
Mm-hmm.
you can ask me that I haven't done except for psychedelics. Psychedelics, the only thing I didn't do. I even looked up
Uh-huh.
ancient tech. I even looked up ancient texts, like ancient texts.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so they believe in Hawaii, there's a healing modality called Huna healing. And in Huna healing, they believe the body not only sends us messages, but it has consciousness, it has voice. So they believe you can actually talk to your body parts. They believe to have that dialogue is important. This is what they believe. So,
But you know, that's not far out thinking because I think about like women when we get pregnant and we talk to our children in the womb. So for anybody listening and thinking that's weird, oh no, it's not. Because I can remember talking to this children too, that's growing inside of me. So it's just an extension of the same concept. Okay,
absolutely.
so you talk to your body
Yes,
parts.
exactly. So that's listening part. That O stands for opening. So open yourself up to this information. Regardless of your belief system, you're just exploring yourself and your body. H
Okay,
stands
let
for
me
heart.
write these things down. Okay,
Okay.
hold on.
Okay.
A is I
Acknowledge.
acknowledge listening, and
Opening.
you're on O. Okay.
Okay. H stands for harnessing. So harness this, make the mental connection, see what works, what doesn't work. Not everything's going to work. And A stands for acting. But with acting, there's a caveat. You have to have courage to act because all the data and all the research points to the fact that people misunderstand the what they call the models of change. It's not that people don't want to change. Most people want to change. They don't know how to change. They don't know if they're thinking about change, pre-contemplation, if they're in change. If they're in change and want to relapse, they don't know where they sit on that. So it's really about having the courage to want to change and knowing the tools that can allow you to express that. So it's the Aloha reboot, 7 minutes a day. You're gonna laugh at me, but someone once said to me, I don't have 7 minutes, 7 minutes in the day. So I
Because
said
you're
to
a
them,
busy executive, right?
I guess so. So I said to them, do you have 1 minute in a day? Like they're like, yeah, I think I have 1 minute. I'm like, take one of those acronyms, practice it for 1 minute for each day for 5 days, and there you have it. There you go. You got
You
the
know, the
Aloha.
response to that is you don't have 7 minutes to be well, but if you get sick, um, you know, then you're in reactive mode instead of preactive. So I want to ask you these questions, and to my listeners, I'm looking down at my questions, and I need to become a pro like they do on TV, where the cards are in front of them, and so on and so forth. Um, you speak about clarity in your TEDx talk, and one of the things you just talk about is that courage as well. Oftentimes, people they don't move into action, the A, because they have patterns in their life that they don't even know that they have. That their nervous system reacts to specific patterns and triggers, and one often behaves or makes decisions from fear or scarcity. I'm not going to follow my dream because I'm afraid of not being able to support myself. Um, I'm not going to challenge the boss's assessment because there are consequences, repercussions. So it comes from fear and scarcity as opposed to abundance. How does clarity help move that person past that challenge of being stuck? Like they might know they want to move, but my goodness, the obstacles are real.
Well, you can imagine with the top of the hour, you mentioned 2,000 plus interviews with thought leaders, executives, change
Hmm.
makers, even celebrities. I interviewed Venus Williams, and I also
Woo-hoo.
have interviewed 200 cancer survivors for a book that was created from my interview series that became a bestseller, thankfully. And it's not
Give us
really
the
about the
title of the
bestseller.
book real quick.
It's called I Survived Cancer. Here is How I Did It. 35 cancer survivors share their journey. So I took 35 of their stories and I told my own.
Okay.
And I tell you this because at the end of the day, what the golden thread through all of them was self forgiveness. It was not
Mm.
about forgiving other people. It's about forgiving themselves. What they should have said, didn't say, could have said, would have said. Oh my gosh, why did I do? Oh, maybe I should have done it. Maybe I shouldn't have done it. And it's constant baggage that gets created. I'm telling you this based upon your question, because at the end of the day, the clarity comes from not about the fact that when I'm coaching an executive or coaching someone, and the question is, well, I've never been through this before, so I don't have the clarity. That's not the answer. The answer is, when has there ever been a time in your life where you felt this way before?
Mm.
Not when have you been faced with this before? Because have we ever been faced with AI taking away jobs? No, we
No.
haven't. We're only experiencing it now. So at the end of the day, it's about that feeling, and then asking them two major questions. With that feeling, if you can trace it back, how did you resource and figure it out? And if you didn't, if you buried it, how can you unbury it now? And the second thing is very important with the coaching I do. It's not just talking, it's about using the embodied. So it's embodiment. It's about using what they call soma, which is the body, using somatics to figure out where does that reside in your body? Where is that being captured? Where is that not being expressed properly? Is there color? Is there language? Is there shape? Is there something there that you can actually meet? I don't want you to release yet. I want you to meet it first. Because all of us can release something, but if we don't meet the moment, if we don't meet the situation, we cannot address it properly. Then it's not really thoroughly has been examined. It's just been thrown away. And so
Hmm.
and the third thing, most important, is this idea of naming. Naming is not just about naming and discarding. Naming is actually giving yourself that psychological distance, like what I did in the hospital. I gave myself a buffer. Savio's in the hospital bed. Okay, this other part of Savio is alive and thriving. How do I created the buffer. So create that buffer with yourself that allows that little bit of leeway so that you are just not identifying with labeling, you're actually putting it into a category. And the category allows you some objectivity rather than subjectivity with this.
And rather than falling apart, you can
And
make
that's where you get
decisions.
and that's where you get clarity. But I'm going to be truthful with you. I'm not selling a course or telling you it could be done tomorrow. Clarity
Hmm.
is something that needs to be fashioned every day.
Hmm.
It's an everyday thing. And if anyone tells you that they can help you find clarity instantly, then as Yoda would say, search your feelings on that.
Search your feelings on that. Um, I survived cancer, and here's how I did it. What was that experience like talking to all of the survivors?
So I made it a point to do two things. I made it a point to express every cancer that people were willing to share and
Hmm.
every type of person who was willing to share. What I found interestingly enough is that I did get men and I did get females talking, but men of color were very, very few and far between.
Hmm.
I think I got two out of 200. They just didn't want to talk about it. They just weren't interested. And if I was to further refine the list, it was probably one African American that wanted to talk about it. That's it.
Right. And
And that
the
experience,
reasons behind that, oh my gosh.
and you have to remember, I'm not just like finding them on Craigslist or whatever. I'm talking about I'm a journalist and we have media contacts with the PR people who represent these people. So I'm not talking about, yes, I wanted to find everyday people, but the people that I found were vetted because they have to be vetted because it's a publication. I'm not just writing a blog or a Substack
Yes.
newsletter. I'm talking with people who are creating and doing. And one of the things I did, Anne Marie, when after that interview series, wrapped, and it was my editor's idea actually to turn it into a coffee table book. He's like, and then I said, okay, maybe 35 stories, and told my own. when I selected the 35 people, and one of them actually was Rob Paulson. He was the voice actor of Pinky and the Brain, the animated series Pinky and the Brain.
I don't, but go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah. So he had throat cancer, and his big thing wasn't the cancer. His big thing was that he wouldn't be able to do voices. Voices made
Hmm.
him happy, and it affected his throat. But thankfully, he survived it. He's still doing voices now, which is wonderful. But at when they submitted for the book, yes, I extracted the interview, but I said to them purposely, I want you to promote yourself. They're like, "What? You want me to promote yourself on your
Hmm.
book?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "But I don't understand why." And I'm like, "Thank you." They're like, "Thank you, but why?" I'm like, because I want people to know that you're still living, that you're still doing, you're still creating, you're still thriving, you're still here, because it doesn't have to be the end of your story. It doesn't have to be
Hmm.
a death sentence. And so I made it a point so that people can look them up and be like, oh, this person was in this book 4 years ago. I can go on their website. They're still living and doing the best they can based upon what life has thrusted upon them. They are
Yes.
making it work.
Savio, I want to just take a moment to affirm what you just said before I ask you, the next part of the question. Because to our Black men, we understand the systems and the social impact of what it means to be who you are and the things that have restricted you and stripped away your freedom to be self expressive over generations. And so, for anyone listening, even if you don't go public with what it is, what your story is, take care of your health. Take care of your health. And here's a reason to go public, because when you do so, you give someone else permission to open up. So when a Savio comes around and asks, sometimes we have to take a leap of faith and say yes to the questions, because when you do so, the young bloods coming up after you need to see somebody who did. So please speak up. And Savios, I want to thank you for that and bringing that to the foreground. What I'd like to do next is I'm into poetry. I'm into spoken word. Okay. So I found this person in media actually following the death of this person. And they use the pronouns they. Uh, and I always stumble on the name a little bit, Andrea Gibson. I want to say is the name of the poet. I'm not going to read the whole poem. I am going to read certain stanzas of the poem, and then I would like you to comment on it. And I best find out the name of the poem and put it so I can attribute it to the right person. And I just want to get your reaction from what's being said. So I'm over here reading parts of it. The nutritionist said I should eat root vegetables, said if I could get down 13 turnips a day, I would be grounded, rooted, said my head would not keep flying away to where darkness lives. The first psychotherapist told me to spend 3 hours a day each day sitting in a dark closet with my eyes closed and ears plugged. I tried it once, but couldn't stop thinking about how gay it was to be sitting in the closet. The yogi told me to stretch everything but the truth, said to focus on the out breath, said everyone finds happiness when they care more about what they give than what they give. The pharmacist said Xanax. And I'll just skip some stanzas. The trauma says, don't write these poems. Nobody wants to hear you cry. about the grief inside your bones. But my bones said Tyler Clemente jumped from the George Washington Bridge into the Hudson River, convinced he was entirely alone. My bones said, write the poems. The author is Andrea Gibson. So Andrea Gibson suffered a long battle with cancer. And here you are, a survivor. Thank goodness. Thank God. And so she has a message in here in terms of write the poems, write the stories. Put that, make a connection for me in terms of what you do, in terms of your leadership coaching, your TEDx talk, your book, your interviews. Why is it important for you to get this story?
Well, first of all,
Story of your life, basically, as a journalist. I'm going to play on that term.
thank you for sharing that. That was actually really beautiful. It was searingly human, and it was the truth, and it was lived. It was experienced. So we need to honor that. I want to take us the moment to honor that.
Mm,
I know that my story is pretty dramatic, and I mentioned in the beginning that this could apply to anything in someone's life. Getting fired from a job, having AI take over something, having a divorce, having someone cheat on you. At the end of the day, it's still pain. It's still discomfort. It's still anger. It's still anguish.
mm,
It's still hell. And I know my story, when people hear it, not only is it dramatic, but it's triggering. People look at
yeah.
me and they say, you survived cancer twice?
Yes.
Do you know, Anne Marie, I've lost 11 people since June of 2024 to cancer? 11 people. And yes, there was a time in my life that I actually thought about the survival guilt of being here. Then cancer came back a decade later and made me confront and see it for what it is. I don't have all the answers to why I'm still here. All I
Mm-hmm.
know is for me, it's no longer a burden, it's a responsibility, a deeply searing responsibility. But I do also know that it affects people because they think about their own mortality, they think about someone they lost, and then it's spoken in very silent, quiet ways. They think about why are you here and my loved one isn't? And I can feel it, I can sense it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this other part of me that knows the medical system from studying it and from living through it and from being a part of the system itself. I know that when you see someone, especially if you're a medical doctor, especially in oncology, and you see their suffering and you say to yourself, oh my gosh, there's nothing more I can do for them. What am I supposed to do? The answer that I was taught and I learned and I gleaned and I sank into was that you do a witness. You witness the pain.
Yes.
You don't put a salve on the pain, you honor the pain. You
Yes.
say to the pain, as I would, I know you're suffering. I've suffered too. I know your discomfort. I've had that too. I know the longing that you have, and I myself have that too. So you don't collapse. You let whatever light you feel inside permeate so that they themselves don't collapse. That's what you do.
Yes. And you let the pain teach you. Tell us what ALOHA stands for one more time.
Aloha stands for a hello to your inner self. It's acknowledge, listen, open, harness, and act. And with all that, it's with courage because it takes courage to change. It takes courage to take another step forward. And it takes courage in this chaotic, disruptive world to actually let our voice out. It takes courage to do that. It's not easy. And if we allow only the politicians to have that voice, then we're not only doing a disservice to ourselves, we're doing a disservice for our community and our state and our country
Yes. So
and our
when
planet.
we act and we take courage, we can add another label or a title if we could to ourselves and call ourselves brave. How do people get in touch with you if they would like to connect with you?
Sure. They can find me on my website. Very easy. SavioPclemente.com. SAVIOPCLEMENTE.com. On there, I have my keynote work. I still have a few more spots, thankfully, in 2026. On there, I have my coaching information, my book information. And then every Wednesday, I have a Substack newsletter called The Human Resolve. On there, I talk about the head, heart, and gut intelligence. Right now, I'm currently running an interview series with CEOs and CMOs on the healthcare leadership operating system. And also, if they want to find me on social media, I'm at every single platform at the Human Resolve. Because Anne Marie, what else do we have but the ability to create resolution and resolve in our life? That's the only thing we have. There's nothing that's
Yes.
guaranteed. And anyone who tells you there's a guarantee, I don't care if it's medical mainstream or some woo-woo wellness guru. At the end of the day, we can only take one step forward, and the way to take step forward is allowing ourselves to become the truth, the answer to what we look for.
Oh, I love that. Allowing ourselves to become the truth, the answer. To my audience, you've just heard a perspective on healing. You've heard about the Aloha system, and you've heard about Savio's journey and the pathway to finding the courage within himself as he moved through, the healthcare system and the leadership that Savio has taken, not just in communicating with business leaders in terms of how to get unstuck and how to lead with clarity, but also how to make decisions in your own personal lives. That's what this discussion is about. If what this resonates with you, hold it up and glean from it what you can, what will help you move forward, what will help you get unstuck, and use what best serves you. This is Anne Marie. I am on all of the social media platforms. So find me, like, subscribe. I would ask for your patronage by sharing with your friends group so that they can hear this message as well, so we can extend the impact. And I've got some fun things coming up for our listeners in the future, and I look forward to the moment when I can share that with you. For now, Anne Marie, host About This Life, changing our lives one day at a time. Take care, everybody.